The great meeting hall of the Galactic Council was buzzing with noise. Representatives from 47 different species filled the curved seats that went up to the ceiling like a giant bowl. Some walked on legs. Others floated in special bubbles filled with gas. And a few were just points of light that moved around special screens. But something was wrong today. The humans section was empty. Council Speaker HFY looked at the empty seats where humans always sat. His blue skin turned a darker shade, which meant he was confused. HFY had run these meetings for 20 years. Humans were never late. They were always the first ones here, bringing their strange drinks called coffee and making small talk with everyone. "Where are the humans?" asked Ambassador Veltar from his floating chair. He represented the Centaurian Republic and had worked with humans many times. His voice had a worried tone. HFY held up a small datapad. "I received this message this morning," he said, his voice carried across the hall through the translation system. "The Terran Federation hereby withdraws from the Galactic Governing Council, effective immediately. We thank the Council for the opportunity to participate and wish all member species prosperity." The hall went completely quiet. Then everyone started talking at once. "That's it?" General Corks of the Zelthrian Empire stood up. His red armor made loud metal sounds. "No demands? No threats? They just leave? Very strange," said Dr. Vexhai of the Corthex Collective. Her computer brain made clicking sounds as she thought. Humans usually give long speeches before making big decisions. They talk about feelings and fairness and other soft concepts. Ambassador Veltar felt something heavy in his stomach. Did anyone see this coming? No one had. For months, humans had seemed normal in meetings. Sarah Chen, their main representative, had spoken about trade agreements and border disputes, like always. She smiled and made jokes during breaks. She even brought her famous chocolate cookies to share last week. "Good riddance," muttered Captain Zextor of the Vegan Confederacy. Humans always slowed us down with their moral questions. Now we can focus on real business. Many others agreed. The Zelthrians had always thought humans were too weak. They cried about civilian deaths in wars and wanted to help refugees instead of letting the strong win. The Corthex found human emotions illogical. Why waste time on feelings when math could solve everything? "Remember the mining rights dispute on Kepler 442? General Corks said. "We could have settled that in one day. Give the planet to whoever has the biggest fleet." But no. Humans wanted to consider the native plant life. Plant life. We spent 6 months on committee meetings. Dr. Vexhai nodded. "My calculations show council efficiency decreased by 23.7% whenever humans raised ethical concerns. Perhaps this departure will improve our productivity." But Ambassador Veltar remembered that dispute differently. The humans had found a solution that let 3 different species share the planet's resources. Everyone went home happy. Without human mediation, that probably would have ended in war. Through the big windows of the meeting hall, they could see human ships leaving the space station. The vessels moved slowly and calmly away from Council space. No weapons were charged. No angry messages were sent. They just flew toward the edge of the galaxy and disappeared into hyperspace. "Should we send someone to ask why they left?" Veltar suggested. "Why waste the effort?" General Corks laughed. "If they want to go live on empty planets at the galaxy's edge, let them. More resources for the rest of us." The meeting continued without humans for the first time in over a century. Speaker HFY found it easier to manage. No one interrupted him to ask about minority rights or environmental impact. The Zelthrians wanted to expand their territory. The math said they were strong enough to take it. Case closed. They passed 3 new trade laws in 1 hour. Before, humans would have asked endless questions about how these laws affected smaller species. Today, they just voted and moved on. The Corthex calculated that this meeting was running 47% faster than usual. "See?" Captain Zextor said during a break. "We don't need humans. They were always the odd ones out anyway. Too emotional. Too unpredictable. Now we can run things properly." But Veltar noticed something else. During breaks, Species usually mixed and talked with each other. Humans were always in the middle of these conversations, translating not just words, but ideas between very different kinds of beings. Without them, each species stayed in their own groups. The Zelthrians talked only to other warrior races. The Korthex only spoke with other logical species. The meeting hall felt colder somehow. As the day ended, delegates returned to their ships and quarters. Most felt satisfied with the productive day. Finally, they could govern without human interference. No more endless debates about fairness. No more delays caused by trying to help every weak species in the galaxy. Veltar stood alone at the big window, watching the last human transport disappear into space. He remembered his first meeting with Sarah Chen 5 years ago. She had been arguing for medical aid to a plague-stricken world. The council had voted it was too expensive and not strategically important. Sarah had looked around the room and said quietly, "When we stop caring about suffering just because it's far away or inconvenient, we stop being worthy of the power we hold." The medical aid was approved. Veltar never found out if Sarah's words changed enough minds, or if something else happened, but he remembered how she looked when she said it. Not angry, just sadly disappointed. Now he wondered if that same disappointment had been building for years. Maybe humans didn't leave suddenly. Maybe they had been leaving slowly, bit by bit, every time the council chose convenience over compassion. The space station felt bigger and emptier as Veltar walked back to his quarters. Tomorrow would bring another efficient meeting without human interruptions. The thought should have made him happy. Instead, it made him feel more alone than ever. 6 months had passed since the humans left, and the Galactic Council was celebrating. Every species representative smiled in their own way as they looked at the numbers on the big screen. Meetings finished 89% faster than before. New laws passed without delay. Trade moved smoothly between systems. "This has been our most productive period in decades," Speaker Zephi announced to applause. His blue skin had a happy glow. "Without constant interruptions for emotional appeals, we can focus on real governance." General Corks nodded his armored head. "Finally, we can solve problems the right way." When the Hydro Commonwealth and the Sand Dwellers fought over water rights on Titan 7, we settled it in one day. The stronger species gets the water. Simple. Dr. Vexhi's computer brain hummed with satisfaction. My efficiency calculations were correct. Decision-making time has decreased by 91%. Resource allocation follows perfect mathematical models now. No more wasted time on feelings. Captain Zextor was counting profits on his datapad. Trade disputes that used to take months now get solved in hours. The biggest fleet wins the trade route. Easy math. My merchants are making more money than ever. The council chamber looked different too. Where humans used to sit, they had installed a new voting computer. It calculated the logical choice for every decision based on military strength, economic power, and population size. No more messy debates about right and wrong. Ambassador Veltar watched his colleagues celebrate, but something felt wrong in his stomach. He kept thinking about the empty space where Sarah Chen used to sit. She would bring different alien foods to share, and somehow get the methane breathers talking to the silicon crystals about art and music. The border dispute between Sectors 7 and 12 was handled perfectly last week. General Corks continued. The Zelthrian fleet arrived. The weaker species moved aside. And now we have clear boundaries. No civilians were hurt because they knew better than to resist. That made Veltar uncomfortable. He remembered how humans used to handle border disputes. Sarah would sit with both sides for days, finding solutions that let everyone keep something important. Usually, both species ended up happier than they expected. But now, the strong just took what they wanted. "What about the refugee situation on Kepler Station?" Veltar asked quietly. "What about it?" Captain Zextor shrugged. "Not our problem. Each species takes care of their own people. Why should the Council waste resources on homeless aliens?" Before humans left, there had been galaxy-wide refugee programs. Human ships would carry supplies to disaster areas and help coordinate rescue efforts between species. Now, when a planet's sun died or a war destroyed cities, the survivors were on their own, unless their government was rich enough to help. Dr. Vexhi pulled up new statistics. Galaxy-wide productivity is up 34%. Military conflicts are resolved 67% faster. Economic growth has increased across all major species. The removal of human interference has created the most efficient governmental period in Council history. Everyone cheered except Veltar. He was thinking about the mining operation on Zerion 5. The crystalline collective had found rare metals under an ocean world where simple fish-like beings lived. Before, humans would have demanded environmental studies and protected areas for the native life. Now, the crystals just started digging. The fish people were too primitive to complain at council meetings. The information networks are much cleaner too, added Tech Coordinator Bluevex. No more human databases cluttering our systems with emotional art, philosophical writings, and historical records about species equality. We have streamlined everything for maximum efficiency. That worried Veltar more than anything. Humans had maintained huge databases of cultural information from every species. They said diversity of thought made everyone stronger. Now those databases were being deleted to save computer space. Soon, only the most powerful cultures would be remembered. But the celebrations continued. The council passed laws in record time. Trade agreements that used to require careful balance between different species' needs now simply favored whoever had the most economic power. Military treaties were based on who had the biggest guns. Remember how humans used to waste our time with peace talks? General Corks laughed. Bringing enemies to the same table, making them talk about feelings and common ground. What nonsense. Now when there's conflict, the stronger side wins quickly, and we move on. The Zelthrian Empire had grown by 12 star systems since humans left. The conquered species were relocated to worker planets, or allowed to integrate into Zelthrian culture. No one asked if they wanted to change their entire way of life. Yet some small problems were appearing. Reports came in about increasing pirate attacks on trade routes. The areas where human peacekeeping fleets used to patrol were becoming dangerous. But the council decided it was too expensive to replace human patrol ships with their own vessels. Let each species protect their own trade routes, Captain Zextor suggested. If they're too weak to fight pirates, they don't deserve safe passage. There were also complaints from university worlds that research was slowing down. Human scientists used to coordinate projects between species, sharing information and ideas. Now each species kept their research secret, afraid others might gain advantages. Good, said Dr. Vexhai. Competition drives innovation. If we keep sharing knowledge, no one will work hard to discover new things. But Veltar remembered the amazing discoveries that happened when human scientists got different species to work together. The cure for the Red Plague came from mixing Zelthrian military medicine with crystalline mineral knowledge and human creative thinking. No single species could have found that cure alone. The most troubling reports came from the Outer Rim territories. Several small colonies had gone completely silent. Investigation teams found empty cities and abandoned space stations, but no signs of war or disease. The populations had just disappeared, probably relocated to better planets. General Corks dismissed the reports. Small species are always moving around, looking for easier lives. But Veltar noticed something strange in the data. All the missing colonies were along the paths human ships had taken when they left Council space. It was probably just coincidence, but it made him feel cold inside. As the celebration meeting ended, delegates returned to their quarters, feeling proud of their efficient government. Tomorrow they would pass more laws, settle more disputes, and expand their territories without any human interference. Veltar walked slowly back to his quarters, listening to his colleagues laugh and plan new conquests. The space station felt very organized and very empty. He missed the sound of Sarah Chen's voice asking difficult questions that made everyone think harder about their choices. The humans were gone, and everyone agreed the galaxy was running better than ever. So why did Veltar feel like they had lost something very important? 18 months after the humans left, Ambassador Veltar was running through the corridors of the council station. Emergency lights flashed red, and alarms were ringing. What started as a simple trade argument had exploded into the biggest crisis the council had seen in decades. It began 3 weeks ago. The Crystarch Collective and the Photon Beings disagreed about energy prices. The Crystarchs were made of living silicon, and needed steady heat to survive. The photon beings were pure energy and could create heat easily. For 50 years, they had traded energy for rare crystals. But now both species wanted better deals. The Cristarchs said energy prices were too high. The photon beings said crystal quality was getting worse. Before humans left, Sarah Chen would have set up meetings between both sides. She would have found a compromise that made everyone happy. Instead, each species sent their toughest negotiators to demand better terms. The Cristarchs threatened to find energy elsewhere. The photon beings said they would sell to higher bidders. Neither side would back down. "This is ridiculous," General Corks had said at last week's emergency meeting. "Just let the market decide. Whoever offers the best deal wins." But that's exactly what caused the disaster. The Cristarchs made deals with 12 other energy suppliers. The photon beings sold their energy to competitors who paid more. Now both species were angry and losing money. The photon beings started using their energy powers to disrupt Cristarch mining operations. The Cristarchs began blocking trade routes with giant space barriers made of living crystal. 3 entire star systems were now cut off from galactic commerce. Dr. Vex High's computer brain was overheating as she tried to calculate solutions. The economic damage increases by 2.3% every hour. At this rate, 12 sectors will be bankrupt within 6 months. "Send in the peacekeeping fleet," suggested Captain Zextor. "What peacekeeping fleet?" Veltar asked sadly. "The humans took their ships when they left. We voted not to replace them because it was too expensive." The room went quiet. For over a century, human peacekeeping ships had prevented exactly this kind of crisis. They would arrive at trouble spots and help enemies find ways to talk instead of fight. But the Council had thought those ships were unnecessary expenses. General Corks stood up in his red armor. "Fine. The Zelthrian Empire will restore order. Our warships can force both sides to behave. That will just make it worse," Veltar warned. "The photon beings will think you're taking the Cristarch's side. Then you'll have 2 enemies instead of helping solve the problem." But General Corks had already sent his fleet. 3 days later, Zelthrian warships arrived in the conflict zone. The photon beings saw this as an invasion and attacked the military vessels. Now the Council had a 3-way war instead of a trade dispute. The crisis got worse every day. Species that had been neutral started choosing sides. Old grudges that humans used to help resolve were breaking out into new conflicts. The careful balance that had kept peace for decades was falling apart. "We need mediators," Veltar said desperately. "People who can get different species to understand each other." "Mediators are weak," General Corks replied. "Strong leadership is what we need. Clear rules enforced by superior firepower." But Veltar remembered how human mediators actually worked. They didn't just make rules and threaten punishment. Sarah Chen would sit with arguing species and help them see each other's problems. She would find creative solutions that gave everyone something they needed. The Council tried to handle refugee problems the same way they handled trade disputes, with force and simple rules. When war refugees fled their home planets, the Council assigned them to camps based on species type, but different species had different needs. Some breathed methane, others needed high radiation, and many couldn't survive near each other. Human refugee organizations used to solve these problems by finding creative housing solutions and building mixed communities where different species could help each other. Now refugees were dying in camps designed for the wrong types of beings. The worst news came from deep space scanning reports. The mysterious disappearances were getting worse. Entire populations were vanishing from outer rim planets. Not killed, not conquered, just gone. Their cities were empty but undamaged. Their belongings were left behind. Dr. Vex High presented the disturbing data to an emergency session. 47 worlds have gone completely silent in the past year. Population readings show 0 life signs, but there are no signs of war, plague, or natural disaster. "Maybe they evacuated because of the increasing conflicts?" suggested Captain Zextor. "Evacuated where?" Veltar asked. "And who helped them leave? None of our species have evacuation fleets operating in those areas." The question hung in the air like poison gas. All the missing worlds were along the paths human ships had taken toward the galaxy's edge. It couldn't be coincidence. You think the humans are involved? General Corks asked angrily. Are they stealing our populations? Or, Veltar said quietly, maybe those populations are choosing to leave. That idea scared everyone more than war or plague. If species were voluntarily abandoning council space to join the humans, what did that say about the galaxy they had built? The information networks were also breaking down. Humans used to maintain galaxy-wide communication systems that let all species share news, art, and scientific discoveries. They said information should be free for everyone, but now each major species was building their own private networks. They only shared information with allies and trade partners. Smaller species found themselves cut off from galactic communications. Scientific research was slowing down because scientists couldn't share discoveries with other species. This is better, Dr. Vexhai insisted. Each species controls their own data. More secure, more efficient. But Veltar noticed that new discoveries were becoming rare. The amazing inventions that used to come from mixing different species' knowledge had stopped completely. Without humans encouraging cooperation, each species was working alone and making little progress. The council meetings themselves were getting uglier. Without humans asking uncomfortable questions about fairness and justice, the strong species were taking whatever they wanted from the weak ones. The Hydrath had enslaved 3 primitive species for underwater mining. The Vegan Confederacy was charging impossible taxes to smaller traders. When anyone complained, General Corks would say, "That's just natural order. The strong lead, the weak follow." Humans confused everyone with their fantasy ideas about equality, but Veltar remembered that human equality wasn't fantasy. Under human influence, the council had included 47 different species as equal members. Now that number was dropping as smaller species either submitted to stronger ones or simply stopped attending meetings. As Veltar walked through the station's corridors after another failed emergency session, he passed the memorial wall where they honored retired council members. Sarah Chen's picture was there, smiling and shaking hands with a methane-breathing ambassador. Under her picture was a quote from her farewell speech years ago. "The strength of a civilization isn't measured by the power of its strongest members, but by how it treats its weakest ones." At the time, many species had thought it was just pretty words. Now Veltar wondered if it had been a warning about exactly what was happening to their galaxy. The humans were gone, and everything was falling apart. But the worst part was that it was too late to ask them to come back. 3 years after the humans left, the Galactic Council was dying. Ambassador Veltar stood in the main meeting hall, counting empty seats. Only 22 species still attended meetings regularly. The others had either withdrawn completely or stopped sending representatives. The great space station felt like a ghost ship. Whole sections were closed down to save power. The beautiful gardens where different species used to meet and talk were brown and dying. No one had time to maintain them anymore. "Order! Order!" Speaker Zephai called out, but his blue skin looked gray with exhaustion. "We must address the crisis in the Outer Rim immediately." General Cork slammed his armored fist on his desk. "What crisis? Half the galaxy is at war. Our trade routes are controlled by pirates, and entire species are vanishing into space. Which crisis do you want to discuss first?" The last 3 years had been a nightmare. The conflict between the Crystarchs and Photon beings had spread to 16 star systems. The Zelthrian Empire was fighting 3 different wars as smaller species rebelled against their rule. Refugee camps were overcrowded with beings who had nowhere else to go. But the most mysterious problem was still the disappearances. Whole populations continued to vanish from planets across the outer galaxy. Investigation teams would find empty cities with lights still on and food still cooking in kitchens. But no people, no bodies, no signs of struggle. "We have received a transmission, Doctor," Vexhai announced. Her computer brain clicked nervously. "From the investigation team at Zirion 9. They have discovered something significant." The main screen lit up with the face of Commander Yextal, a tough military investigator. Behind him, they could see an empty city that looked like people had just stepped outside for a moment. "Council members," Commander Yextal began, "we found something in the city's communication center. Video records from 3 months ago. Just before the population disappeared, the screen changed to show the main square of the empty city. Thousands of beings were gathered there, listening to someone speak. The camera moved closer, and Veltar felt his blood turn to ice. It was Sarah Chen. She looked exactly the same as when she left the council 3 years ago. Her brown hair was tied back in a simple style, and she wore the same kind of practical clothes she always preferred. But her voice was different. Instead of the careful diplomatic tone she used in council meetings, she sounded warm and personal. "My friends," Sarah was saying to the crowd, "I know your government has ignored your requests for help. I know you feel forgotten and afraid. But you are not alone. The Human Federation offers a place for all beings who believe in equality, justice, and peaceful cooperation." The crowd was listening carefully. These were simple farming people who had asked the council for protection from raiders. Their requests had been denied because they had no military value and no valuable resources. "We cannot force your government to care about you," Sarah continued. "But we can offer you something else. A chance to join a society where every being has equal value, regardless of their species or power level." "That's illegal," General Corks shouted at the screen. "You can't recruit populations from council member worlds." But Veltar was reading the legal documents that appeared on screen. The Human Federation had followed all proper procedures. They had filed formal requests with the planetary government asking permission to offer evacuation assistance. When those requests were ignored, they appealed directly to the population through open broadcasts. Dr. Vexhai was calculating frantically. If they offered evacuation to every world that requested council help and was denied. "How many worlds?" Veltar asked, though he was afraid to know. 237 requests for assistance were denied in the past 3 years, Dr. Vexhai reported. Mostly from small populations with no strategic value. The truth was worse than anyone imagined. Humans hadn't just left quietly. They had extended rescue offers to every being the council had abandoned. Every oppressed minority, every refugee population, every species too weak to defend themselves. Commander Yextal continued his report. The evacuation was completely voluntary. We found records showing the humans provided transport ships and helped relocate anyone who wanted to leave. They also left behind supplies and equipment for anyone who chose to stay. "Traitors and thieves," General Corks raged. "They stole our populations." "Stole?" Veltar asked quietly. "Or rescued people we refused to help?" The screen showed more footage from different worlds. Always the same pattern. Humans arriving with relief supplies and offers of relocation. Always giving people a choice. Always providing help to those who decided to stay. But it wasn't just the weak and oppressed who had left. The investigation revealed that thousands of scientists, artists, philosophers, and teachers had also joined the human exodus. These were beings who believed in cooperation between species, who valued knowledge over power, who wanted to build something better than endless competition. "The galaxy has lost more than population numbers," Dr. Vexhai admitted. "We have lost 73% of our interspecies researchers, 89% of our cultural exchange programs, and 94% of our humanitarian organizations." Every being who believed in something greater than their own species' interests had quietly followed the humans to the galaxy's edge. What remained was exactly what the council had said they wanted: pure competition between species, with the strong ruling the weak. "Look what we've achieved," Veltar said bitterly. "Perfect efficiency. No more time wasted on moral concerns or helping the weak. No more delays caused by considering different viewpoints. We can make decisions based purely on power and profit." Captain Zextor was studying financial reports. "It's not working," he admitted reluctantly. "Trade profits are down 67% because trust between species has collapsed. Everyone assumes everyone else is trying to cheat them." The economic numbers were devastating. Without humans facilitating trust between different species, trade agreements had become almost impossible. Every deal required massive security measures and enforcement fleets. The cost of mistrust was destroying galactic commerce. But the worst revelation came from long-range sensors pointed toward the galaxy's edge. The Human Federation had been busy during their 3 years of exile. Massive construction projects were detected on dozens of worlds. Energy signatures suggested technologies beyond anything the Council had seen. How is this possible? Dr. Vexhai asked, studying the data. They should be struggling to survive on empty frontier worlds. Instead, they appear to be thriving. Veltar thought he understood. Humans had always been good at getting different species to work together. Now they had collected everyone in the galaxy who shared that vision. Instead of each species working alone, they were combining their knowledge and abilities. The silicon crystal's mathematical skills mixed with photon, being energy manipulation and human creativity. The result was technology that no single species could have developed. When cooperation replaced competition, innovation exploded. "We have to get them back," Captain Zextor said desperately. "The galaxy is falling apart without them." "How?" General Quarks demanded. "Send the fleet to force them to return? Fight a war against people who saved our refugees?" "Maybe," Veltar suggested quietly. "We should ask ourselves why they left in the first place." The room fell silent. No one wanted to admit the truth. Humans hadn't left because they were weak or defeated. They had left because the Council had chosen power over principles, efficiency over empathy, strength over justice. Now the galaxy was paying the price for that choice. The Council had become exactly what they wanted: a government of the strong ruling the weak. And it was destroying everything they had tried to build. As the meeting ended with no solutions and more problems than ever, Veltar looked out at the stars and wondered if it was too late to learn from their mistakes. The humans were gone, and they had taken the galaxy's conscience with them. The question now was whether anyone in the Council was brave enough to admit they had been wrong about everything. 5 years after the humans left, Ambassador Veltar walked through the empty corridors of the Council station. His footsteps echoed in the silence. Most of the lights had been turned off to save power. The great meeting hall that once held representatives from 47 species now hosted meetings of only 8 remaining members. The Galactic Council was dying. Half the galaxy was at war with itself. The Zelthrian Empire had split into 3 fighting factions. The Christarch Collective had closed their borders completely after losing most of their population to human evacuation ships. The photon beings had disappeared entirely, leaving only empty energy fields where their worlds used to be. Trade between species had almost stopped. Without trust or human mediators, every deal required military escorts and threat of violence. Pirates controlled most space routes because no one could agree on who should patrol them. Refugee camps had become permanent cities of the desperate and forgotten, but the worst part was the silence from the Outer Rim. For 2 years, the Council had received no word from the Human Federation. Long-range sensors showed massive construction projects and energy signatures that didn't match any known technology. Sometimes they detected signals that might be communications, but they were encrypted in ways no Council species could understand. Today we discuss the proposal to contact the Human Federation directly, Speaker Zephi announced to the nearly empty meeting hall. His blue skin had faded to almost gray. He looked older and more tired than anyone had ever seen him. Only 8 species still sent representatives to Council meetings. The others had either joined the human exodus, been conquered by stronger neighbors, or simply stopped caring about galactic government. General Quarks stood up slowly. His red armor was dented and scarred from the civil wars tearing apart his empire. "I oppose any contact with the traitors who stole our populations." "Stole?" Veltar asked. "Or offered hope to people we had abandoned?" Dr. Vexhai's computer brain was running much slower than before. Too much of her processing power was dedicated to calculating the endless crises facing their dying government. "My analysis shows our current trajectory leads to complete governmental collapse within 18 months. Captain Zextor looked up from his financial reports with despair. Trade revenue is down 91% from 5 years ago. Most species are returning to primitive barter systems because they can't trust galactic currency anymore. The irony was bitter. They had wanted efficiency without human interference. Instead, they had achieved perfect inefficiency. Nothing worked anymore. Every problem had become bigger because no one knew how to bring different species together to solve anything. "I still say we should demand they return," General Quarks insisted. Send an ultimatum. They are council citizens, and they belong here. With what fleet? Veltar asked sadly. Half our species are at war with each other. The other half have no military ships left. And even if we could send ships, what would we threaten them with? Making their lives worse? The truth was that reports from refugees suggested life in the Human Federation was good. Very good. Multiple species living peacefully on the same worlds. Scientific discoveries that seemed impossible. Art and culture that mixed different alien traditions in beautiful new ways. Perhaps, Dr. Vexhai said quietly, we should consider that the humans found a better way to govern. General Corks's armor made angry metal sounds. Better? They abandoned their responsibilities. They ran away instead of fighting for what was right. Did they? Veltar asked. Or did they recognize that this council was never going to change? And they found a different way to help people? Creating sorting, the debate was interrupted by an urgent signal from the communication center. A ship had been detected approaching the station. The vessel design was unknown, but its signature matched human technology. They're coming back, Captain Zextor said hopefully. Or they're coming to attack, General Corks muttered, reaching for his weapon. But when the ship docked, only one person stepped out. She was tall and confident, wearing a simple blue uniform that looked both practical and elegant. Her dark hair was streaked with silver, and she carried herself with quiet authority. I am Admiral Jennifer Chen, she announced as she entered the meeting hall. Daughter of Sarah Chen, representing the Human Federation. Veltar felt his heart jump. She looked so much like her mother, but there was something different about her. Sarah had always seemed to be carrying the weight of everyone's problems. Jennifer looked like someone who had found solutions. You've come to rejoin the council? Speaker Zephi asked hopefully. Jennifer smiled sadly. I'm afraid that's not possible. The Human Federation operates under very different principles than this council. We don't believe in government by the strongest or richest. Every being has equal voice, regardless of their species' military power. Impossible, General Corks declared. How do you make decisions without clear hierarchy? How do you prevent chaos? The same way my mother tried to show you. Jennifer replied gently. Through patience, understanding, and finding solutions that help everyone, instead of just the powerful. She activated a small device that projected images into the air. The council members saw worlds they didn't recognize. Cities where humans walked beside crystalline beings and energy creatures. Children of different species played together in parks. Scientists from dozens of races worked on projects together. This is New Harmony, Jennifer explained, showing them a beautiful city. Home to 37 different species. They chose to live together because they believe diversity makes them stronger. The images were stunning. Technology that seemed like magic. Art that combined alien traditions in ways that created new beauty. People who looked happy and peaceful instead of afraid and angry. Dr. Vexhai was calculating frantically. How do you resolve conflicts between such different species? My models show that cooperation should be impossible at this scale. It's not easy, Jennifer admitted. It requires people who are willing to listen more than they speak. It requires believing that everyone has something valuable to contribute. It requires putting principles before profit. Pretty words, General Corks sneered. But what about military defense? What happens when enemies attack? Jennifer's smile became sharper. General, the Human Federation now includes over 300 worlds and more than 60 species. We have technologies your council has never seen, because we combine knowledge instead of hoarding it. Our weak approach to government has made us the strongest force in the galaxy. The casual confidence in her voice made everyone uncomfortable. The council had spent 5 years telling themselves that humans were weak and naive. Now they were learning that human weakness had built something more powerful than any council species could imagine. What do you want from us? Veltar asked. Nothing, Jennifer replied. We don't need anything from the council. But we wanted to make one final offer. She activated another device that projected an official-looking document into the air. Any species or individual who truly believes in equality and justice is welcome to join the Human Federation. This offer is open to everyone, powerful governments and single refugees alike. We judge beings by their character, not their military strength. General Cork stood up angrily. You're trying to steal our remaining populations. We're offering hope to people you've abandoned. Jennifer corrected calmly. Just like we offered hope to the millions of beings this council refused to help over the past 5 years. She looked around the nearly empty meeting hall with sad eyes. My mother loved this place. She believed in what the council could become. She spent decades trying to help you build something better. Then why did she leave? Speaker HFY asked desperately. Because she realized you didn't want to build something better. You wanted to stay the same. The strong ruling the weak, might making right, efficiency without compassion. So she found people who did want something better, and she built it with them. Jennifer gathered her equipment and prepared to leave. The Human Federation will not interfere with council affairs. But neither will we pretend that this government serves anyone except the powerful. Anyone who wants something different knows where to find us. As she walked toward the door, Veltar called out, "What if we wanted to change? What if we tried to do better?" Jennifer paused and looked back at him. Then you wouldn't need us to come back. You would build something worth joining. After she left, the remaining council members sat in silence. Through the windows, they could see her ship departing toward the galaxy's edge, carrying their last chance for redemption. Over the following months, more species quietly left council space. Some entire governments resigned and relocated their populations. Others simply stopped responding to council communications. The great station that had once been the center of galactic civilization became a tomb for dead dreams. Veltar was the last one to leave. As he walked through the abandoned halls for the final time, he stopped at the memorial wall where Sarah Chen's picture still hung. Under her image, someone had added a new quote. Sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to walk away. Sometimes the greatest wisdom is starting over, instead of trying to fix something that was broken from the beginning. 1. The lights went out behind him as Veltar left the station. In the distance, stars shone brightly around the rim of the galaxy, where humans and their allies were building the future the Council had been too proud to create. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about the price of taking good people for granted. Some wisdom can only be gained through loss, and some mistakes cannot be undone. But somewhere out there, the dream of true equality between species lived on, growing stronger every day in the hands of those brave enough to start over and do it right.